Hey guys, welcome back to the garage. That's Greg. You probably saw him maybe like 2 years back.
Changing the oil and getting it all over my arm.
It's kind of a significant moment for
Oh! Yeah, when we were working on the booger. Yeah.
No, I'm pushing the spring up so I'm to the wire.
Anyway, something interesting is happening today. I am actually getting rid of this BMW, and you guys probably don't know this car very well because I never feature it. This is not a project car. This is just actually kind of a nice car that I have, always dealership maintained. I don't mess with it. This actually is getting sold to Greg's dad.
Oh man, it's like a robot. Transformer.
Greg is selling me his Miata. Alright, so when did you get this car?
I got this car, gosh, like 2.5 years ago when I was living in DC.
How much did you pay for it?
I paid $2,500 for it.
And what have you done to it so far?
Not a lot. Basically just suspension, and then I changed out the steering wheel because the leather was like peeling off of it, and I fixed some rust on it. Well, I got some rust fixed on it.
There's a lot of paint flaking off everywhere. So
paint flaking off.
So the car looks a lot worse than it actually is. So Greg, why are you getting rid of Marty?
Because it doesn't really make sense to have a second car living in New York, and I could buy the car twice over for what I pay to store it. So
how much are you paying in storage per month?
$300, a little more than $300 a month.
Yeah, so in a year that's $3,600. Kind of more than what this car is worth, I guess. Hey guys, it's bright and early in the morning, and if I look a little tired, it's because I only got about 3 hours of sleep. And that's because today is Dyno Day. We are going to see how much power this poor little puppy makes before we make any modifications to it. And the dyno session is scheduled in about 2 hours, but before we head over there, there's a couple of things that I want to do first. So let's take this out for a test drive, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the car while we're driving. Now that we're out where there's a lot less traffic, let's go through some good, the bad, and the ugly with Marty the 1990 Mazda Miata. So let's start with the good. There's plenty to like about this car. First of all, it comes with a clean title. It is not a salvage car. And for a 1990 Miata, the mileage is really pretty low. It has not crossed 100,000 miles yet. And as you can tell, it comes with a 5-speed manual transmission, which is a must-have for project cars. It's just so much more fun to drive than automatics. And unlike the Datsun, most of the essential accessories and electronics still work. Like the pop-up headlights, oh, those are so amazing. They work flawlessly. The car is in good enough condition to pass a New York safety inspection without any issues, which, you know, doesn't tell you a lot other than the fact that most of the things that should work still do work. The interior is in reasonable condition, you know, at least for a 30-year-old car. But let's talk about the most important thing, which is the engine and the transmission. And in short, it's in amazing shape as far as I can tell so far. You know, Greg has been driving this car up and down the East Coast for thousands of miles without any issues whatsoever. There's no exhaust smoke, there's no coolant in the oil, there's no oil in the coolant. And the 5-speed transmission is in really great shape too. It shifts through all 5 gears without any problems, and the clutch feels good. It doesn't feel like it needs to be replaced anytime soon. As far as I can tell so far, there's no significant rust issues with the car. I glanced underneath the car. for any obvious damage to the frame rails or rust issues, and I really couldn't find any. Alright, so those are all of the good things that I can think of. So let's move on to the bad. First bad thing, the AC does not work, which is not an issue right now because it's winter, but if I want to drive it in the summer, an AC system is pretty much a must-have. Another bad thing, the weather stripping on the car is pretty worn. They are cracked and faded in a lot of places, so those will all have to be replaced. There is a lot of rattling going on. You guys can probably hear that. I'm not talking about the usual rattling that comes with 30-year-old cars. I'm talking about a little bit of metallic creaking and unusual rattling coming from the car. So eventually I'll have to figure out what that's about. Another thing that I really don't like is this soft top. It has some holes in it, and it doesn't seal all that well. And it's also a safety issue because the back window is so faded and opaque that at night I literally cannot see out the back of this car. And I think Greg put on probably the cheapest tires that he could find. I saw the receipt from the shop that he used, and we're riding on $40 tires right now. So those will probably have to be replaced very soon, along with the wheels. I know they're stock Miata wheels, but I think they're so ugly, and I'm definitely getting some new wheels. And finally, let's talk about the real ugly things about the car, and by that I mean it is not easily or cheaply fixable. The very first thing is that the car is an eyesore. The paint is actively flaking off, the wipers are so rusty, and I know some cars have this like ratty look that's kind of cool because it's so bad. This car is neither here nor there. It's not so bad that it's funny or cool, but it's not really good looking either. And speaking of appearance, there are a lot of dings on the car that I'll have to fix. The car is silver, so it's not that easy to tell, but if you inspect it closely, there's a lot of dings all over the car. I don't think there's a single panel that doesn't have a ding on it. And the last ugly thing that I'll mention about the car is actually the engine. The engine that I would have liked to have is the 1.8 liter that came in the later model Miatas. And I know this might be a little bit controversial because from what I've read, a lot of people actually prefer the 1.6 over the 1.8 because the 1.6, although it's a little bit down on power, it's a lot more lively and faster revving. But obviously a lot more people swap out the 1.6 for a 1.8 because it does give you a lot more potential to make power, especially if you slap a turbocharger kit on it.
Alright, we're back from the test drive, but before we head off to the dyno session, I want to do a quick compression test. And if you guys don't know what a compression test is, it is a test that measures the engine's ability to build pressure in each of its cylinders. And the test can give you a very good idea of how healthy your engine is. And for the sake of brevity, I won't launch into a long explanation of what a compression testing is or how to interpret the results, mostly because I already did that. You can find the episode link right here. But very long story short, what you're hoping to see is that your compression test readings are as close to stock numbers as possible and very consistent across all cylinders. So this test is very easy to do and it can be very quick. You can do it in less than 5 minutes. And it is one of the most important tests that you should do before buying a high mileage used vehicle. But I already bought this car, it's already mine, so why am I doing it? Well, it's because I have big plans for this car, and a lot of it involves throwing money at the engine bay, hoping to make it go a little faster. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I'm working with a good foundation. If it's a bad engine, then all of that money and effort is just going to go to waste. And if the compression testing reads really low, I don't even want to spend money at a dyno shop because I know it's not going to put out the numbers that I want to see. And if the engine's in bad shape, I already said I don't like the 1.6, so I might as well start with a 1.8 swap or do something a little bit more crazy. But enough talking, let's actually do the compression test now because we're running out of time. We need to be quick. So that was pretty unexpected to say the least. I did not expect the numbers to come out that high. The stock number that I was looking for was 193 if I remember correctly, and all 4 of the cylinders either met that number or actually was higher than that. So either this engine has been meticulously maintained and never abused for 30 years and 100,000 miles of its life, which is a little bit unlikely given the state that the rest of the car is in, or maybe more likely somebody shaved that head to raise the compression. But either way, it seems like the engine is super solid. I kind of already knew that from driving it, but again, I didn't expect the numbers to come out this high. And I can't find a good enough reason to get rid of this engine and swap in a new one. So now I'm really excited to go to the dyno and see what kind of power this thing puts down. So let's go over there. Oh yeah.
That's what that's for. Is that a factory steering wheel? Thank you. Third or fourth? Third? It's linear like my Z, look at that. Identical.
Alright, I think that's it for this episode. As you guys can see, I've already started tearing into the engine, so stay tuned for that. If you're more of a Datsun fan, I think I'm about 1 day of work away from being able to finish up the rust repairs and shipping it off to a acid dipping company. So that'll be exciting too. Either way, support the channel by subscribing, and I'll see you guys again soon.